I think it's the best business model on the planet. I think that instead of just launching a product, what if you went out there and built an audience around something interesting about something that you either have a passion for or some expertise in, build that audience. And then once you build that audience, then how do you build revenue opportunities on top of that?
You'll learn something serious about how you can build a tribe of raving fans and monetize it on today's show. You might not like it, but you'll probably love it. I'm Ken Newhouse. Building a profitable business isn't only about generating leads and driving sales. It's about who we are and what we're made of. It's about finding the most effective methods to persuade, inspire, and ignite the imagination of others so you can succeed in business. If you're a member of the new breed of entrepreneur, I invite you to join the quest as we reveal the newest and most effective methods you can use to get clients now. My guest on today's episode left a six-figure executive publishing position in 2007 to start a business, and while he'd been thinking about leaving his job for a while, and while he had what he thought was an amazing product to sell, the product wasn't going to be ready anytime soon. As it turned out, he ended up with no job, no product to sell, and most importantly, no income. And while this is occurring, he's got two boys, ages 3 and 5, a wife, and a mortgage to pay. Even worse, his web developer didn't believe they could get the online offering ready for at least 9 months. So imagine this: no clients, no job, no income, and nothing to sell for 9 months. The fact that we're in the heart of the new COVID economy, coupled with the real threat of America becoming a socialist nation, tells me that you're all too familiar with the stress that he was experiencing. So in the face of a seemingly no-win situation, what did he do? He focused all his attention on building an audience. In a few weeks, his blog was up and running, and 3 to 5 times a week, he created and distributed helpful information targeted to marketers in large companies, the audience he wanted to reach eventually with his new product. A few months later, he had started to build a small, loyal following. Fast forward to the present day. The company he built, Content Marketing Institute, was named to the Inc. 500 fastest growing private companies list for 3 years running and became the fastest growing business media organization in all of North America. He consistently grew revenues at 50% a year from 2012 until he sold the business in 2017. In 2015, they topped $10 million in revenues. And my guest today, through what he refers to as a lovely accident, stumbled onto a powerful way to build a business in the digital age. And he's proven beyond a shadow of a doubt, with the epic success of the Content Marketing Institute, his books, and the projects he's now working on, that there's no better way to build your business than with content marketing done right. I'm Ken Newhouse, and I want to welcome you to episode number 390 of the Get Clients Now podcast. My guest today is Joe Pulizzi, the godfather of content marketing. And the new and updated version of his New York Times bestseller, Content Inc., is going to be the topic of our conversation. On today's episode, you're going to discover that by focusing on building an audience first and defining products and services second, you can change the rules of the game and significantly increase the odds of financial and personal success. I can tell you from personal experience with 17 years as a practicing chiropractor, and most recently, I'm entering my 5th year as a full-time podcaster. I believe the absolute best way to get clients now and grow your business is not by launching a product or service, but by creating a system to attract and build an audience of raving fans, subscribers, clients, customers, and patients. Once you've built a loyal audience, one that loves you and the information you produce, you can, in most instances, sell your audience pretty much anything you want. This model is called Content Inc., and you're about to discover how to use it in your business so you can get clients now, generate more sales, and make your business more profitable in the heart of the new COVID economy. So if you're ready, let's go ahead and welcome my guest, Joe Pulizzi, onto the show. All right, so Joe, it's awesome to have you on the show today. Big fan. Been following you for a long time. Love your books. Got a new book coming out here. Actually, it's the updated version of your book, Content Inc., that came out, I think, 5 or 6 years ago?
5 or 6 years ago. Yeah, 2015. You got it.
Also, Epic Content Marketing was one of my personal favorites. You got a free book that just came out, but we're going to focus the conversation today on the updated version of the book, Content Inc. But before we get started, first of all, I want to welcome you to the show. So on behalf of myself and members of the Get Clients Now Nation, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here. Having said that, if you could take a minute or two, because there might be somebody in my audience who may have been hiding somewhere on the planet and not been exposed to all. I mean, you're prolific, but if you could take a minute or two, give us your backstory, bring us up to speed so we know who we're dealing with today.
Well, Ken, you're way too kind. And if you actually deliberately want to hear the backstory, I will give it to you in three parts. No, I'm just kidding. I cut my teeth in publishing. I was lucky enough to fall into a position at a company called Penton Media. And at the time, Penton was the largest independent business media company in North America. They had about 45 different brands in manufacturing and machine design and food services and all kinds of stuff that you wouldn't know what those brands were unless you worked in those industries. And the department that I went into was called Pet and Custom Media, which was fantastic because we didn't do anything around advertising or sponsorship. We helped mostly the larger customers within Penton, help them tell their stories. So we would start, of course, back in 2000, we started with custom magazines. So I worked on all kinds of custom print magazines, and those evolved into websites and webinar programs and blogging programs and whatnot, and stayed with Penton until 2007. And I had this idea. I always had this itch to start a company. And I said, oh my God, this thing about custom content, which was also called custom media, which was called custom publishing, which I started to call content marketing because the first three things I just mentioned, nobody cared about. But if I was talking to marketing people all day long. So I said, well, we better call this thing marketing, something marketing. So we said, okay, let's call it content marketing, and started a company in 2007 that was like the eHarmony for content marketing, if you will. That was what we told people because it was the easiest to understand. So basically, brands that needed content created, we matched them up with journalists or content agencies and helped them do their magazine project or their blogs. Because the one thing, and this is still true, Ken, the one thing that I've learned about most companies is they're really terrible at telling relevant, interesting stories. They're terrible at it. Most companies are terrible. Most businesses are terrible at it. So that's why we're like, okay, we'll match these up and we'll do this business model that ultimately was the worst business model on the planet. And by 2009, I'm thinking, oh, I shouldn't have quit that executive job at Penton. I should have kept it. Unfortunately, I don't know what to do now. I got 2 kids and a wife and a family here that we don't have enough money to put food on the table. What are we going to do? And then decided, okay, we're going to give it one more try, and had this idea for, stop trying to sell this eHarmony product. Let's just give people what they needed. And what people were saying is, Joe, we'd like training around content marketing. Joe, is there any events out there on content marketing where I can meet other people dealing with the same challenges I'm dealing with? And I need ongoing education about this so we can teach other communications and marketing people and organization how to do this. So came up with the idea for Content Marketing Institute. That was born in 2010. And thank goodness that actually took off. And by 2012, 2013, we launched Content Marketing World. The event launched in 2011, but it became the largest international physical event in the space in just a couple of years. And so things, I'm writing books all the way along on this content marketing, fell in love with the practice of content marketing. And we hit a really good spot. My wife and I, who own the business, we sold Content Marketing Institute in 2016. I stayed on till the end of 17. And since then, Ken, I've been just kind of evangelizing the practice of this thing as a business model. At Content Marketing Institute, I was really focused on the enterprise side. I was really focused on, okay, how does a chief marketing officer that doesn't know anything about storytelling, they put most of their money into advertising, how do they start building relationships with their customers by sending out valuable, relevant, compelling information on an ongoing basis? That's content marketing. Well, since then, Ken, I've really been focusing on, I think it's the best business model on the planet. I think that instead of just launching a product, what if you went out there and built an audience around something interesting about something that you either have a passion for or some expertise in, build that audience. And then once you build that audience, then how do you build revenue opportunities on top of that? Basically what Content Inc., the book, is about. And did this, analyzed hundreds of businesses from around the world and how they did it. And that's why we came up with, the Content Inc. model, from start to finish. And so here it is, 2021, and I'm still doing it. I'm still doing it because I just, I love it. I love to see these success stories where I don't know if you know Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast, YouTuber, He's got 49 million subscribers now. Started a hamburger chain a couple months ago. Mr. Beast Hamburgers, 400 different locations. How was he able to do that? Because he built an audience. He started in 2012. He had a little Minecraft YouTube channel that he blew out into the most amazing YouTube videos you'll ever see. 49 million. He gets 50 to 80 million per looking at this thing. So he's become this dominant force, probably will be a future billionaire in a very short amount of time. But how do you just go out and start a chain of 400 restaurants like that? Well, when you have an audience of 50 million, you can do that. And I guess the first week, these were the busiest places on earth because all he had to do was say, hey, I started a hamburger chain to his 50 million subscribers on YouTube. And what did they all do? They went out and bought his hamburger. So I love that model because why not build the audience first? And then your audience will help you launch whatever you want to launch in the future.
All right, I'm going to ask you another question, then we're going to kind of dig into the meat. One thing I want to mention quickly, and Joe, I don't know if your assistant told you or not, but I guarantee everyone's book or their coaching programs, things like that on the air. So you can invest in Joe's book. I've already read the original version, just actually reread it again. But this is super high quality stuff. You can invest in this book and it'll return multiples, not only of your money. We can always get more money. We can always get more clients. We can't get more time. It's worth the investment of your time. But I'm going to guarantee the updated version of the book. I'll guarantee the older version of the book. And I'll also guarantee Epic Content Marketing, which is another fabulous book that Joe wrote maybe 2 years prior to Content Inc. or 2 years
you're
after.
Right, 2013. You got it.
So all those are going to be guaranteed. Guaranteed. You can find that on the website, kennewhouse.com. If you invest in any of these books and you're unhappy for any reason, email me at customerservice@kennewhouse.com. I'll give you your money back. No questions asked. Joe, one of the things I love to ask every guest is what's something about you that people in the marketplace typically don't know about you? And you may have actually just told us, I don't know, but you'd like them to know.
Oh, well, more people know this, Ken, now than they used to, but I grew up in the funeral home industry. I come from a long line of funeral directors. My grandfather was an entrepreneur funeral director in Sandusky, Ohio. And I worked there for 4 or 5 years. So talk about customer service and talk about, finding a passion and doing something. And why more people know about that now is I wrote a novel last year called The Will to Die, and it's set in a funeral home. So that's why when a lot of people buy that book, if you like, it's a thriller mystery fiction. So it's not although it does have some marketing in it because the lead character runs a marketing agency that has to take over his father's funeral home. I won't say anything more. Anyways, that's why a lot of people know that I come from a funeral home background because they're like, Joe, how do you know all this insight into funeral homes? I'm like, well, I do have some experience with that. But that's probably one, outside of the point, I know we have a lot of entrepreneurs that listen to your show, Ken, and being able to grow. I mean, of course, how do most entrepreneurs become entrepreneurs? Because they grew up around other entrepreneurs. My father and mother, they started a restaurant. So I've been around that my whole life. So I felt incomplete until I started, my own business. And so that was just a great influence on me growing up.
That is an unusual combination. I don't think I've ever heard anybody who's grown up with a background of having family-owned businesses that were, on one hand, dealing with death and sadness and, having to console people, which is very difficult to do. Mm-hmm. And then at the same time, being in the restaurant business. My parents owned a glass company, like 50 years. And finally, I think 2 years ago, I got them to finally sell it because my dad didn't want to retire. I'm like, Dad, it's time. Go enjoy yourself. So we're going to start diving in now. We're going to peel back the onion a little bit at a time. You're obviously really big on content marketing. Obviously, with the name of your book, Content Inc., the name of your company. How does an individual like the person listening to my show really dive into this whole idea of content marketing? Because I think a lot of people think they're using content marketing, but how do they get to the point where they're using content marketing? What kind of mindset do they need to adopt in order to really grab onto this whole thing of content marketing and use it in their business and get some ROI on it? Because sure. I think a lot of people are frustrated and saying, I do content marketing when they're really not doing content marketing. It's not what you're talking about. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think that, of course, it depends on who you're talking to, but I want to talk about it from the fact that let's just say that if you're listening to this, you don't have millions of dollars to plow into something. So you have a limited budget like most businesses do, and you want to grow that business. Well, you could look at a content initiative such as an e-newsletter, a YouTube channel, a podcast like yours, Ken, as just a customer service activity. It doesn't have to generally grow direct revenues. It could just say, we want to create better customers. We want to deliver amazing things to our customers on a regular basis. And that's how a lot of these things start. So you start a podcast, you start a YouTube channel, you start a Facebook group, whatever the case is. Where I love the idea of content marketing or content inc. in a business is all you're trying to do is help your customers, but outside of the products and services you offer. That's just really important distinction. You're not necessarily going to sell them anything directly, but you're like, I care about my customers. I love my customers so much that I just want to help them get better jobs, live better lives, do whatever. It's almost a mission, if you will. And that's what I love about it. Now, can this mission deliver you millions of dollars? Absolutely. But if you start off with the mentality that, boy, I really want to help people. I really want to help these people that, buy my food every day or go into the dentist's office or whatever. I want to help them. And if you do that really well and you focus on this idea of helping, it will grow your business. So that's just the one aside, Ken. The best thing that I can tell people when you're starting anything is just let's simplify the process. Where I get frustrated, Ken, is and this happens with large businesses or small businesses. They get an idea and they're like, all right, just say you're a landscaper. Oh, I'm going to create some information ongoing to my customers on how they can have a better lawn. And hopefully the idea is if we help them ongoing with this idea of having a better lawn, they will buy our services. And that's generally how it works. But what they'll do is they'll say, oh, we're going to start these videos and then we're going to do a podcast and then we're going to start this Facebook group and I'm going to do this thing on TikTok and God knows what else. Well, you cannot be a jack of all trades in that. You become master of none, as we know, and you will end up failing because in order to be successful, and this is any size company, you really need to start off with something that's truly yours, that a story that only you can tell, that we call this the content tilt. What is your differentiation? You do it consistently over time in one channel. So that's where, I talked about that Mr. Beast example, YouTube, only YouTube, You and I've done, like I started mine in blogging. It was just a blog. You have this great podcast. That's your one thing. So focus on doing those things great. And that's where you don't have to do everything at once. You don't have to, if you look at the greatest media companies of all time, New York Times, the Financial Times, NBC, ESPN, how did they start? They did one thing really well over time. And once they build what we call a minimum viable audience, then they went out and diversified. So don't put pressure on you to be everywhere at once. Just do one thing well. Build an audience. It takes about 12 to 18 months to build a loyal audience that you can monetize. And then you'll start to make money off it. You'll start to drive revenues. You'll start to sell more products, whatever the case is. So it's have something different to say. That's your content tilt. Choose one channel, deliver consistently over time. And that consistency, Ken, is probably the most important thing. You have to be like Norm from Cheers. You show up every day. You're getting on this, but instead of getting on that bar and you're drinking beer, you're getting on there and you're delivering something really, really special to your customers on an ongoing basis. Doesn't happen overnight. If you say, Joe, I got 3 to 6 months. I want to do this. What should I expect? I would say nothing. You should expect nothing in 6 months or 9 months or even 12 months. I would say by the 12 to 18 month period, you should start to see movement. You should start to get qualitative and quantitative information that things are moving, that customers are excited to get your message, that you could say, wow, this is really a thing.
Yeah, I actually made the commitment to do 12 months worth of shows, one show a week. And in the last 4 years, I've missed 1 week. But the first 12 months, and literally it was near the end of month 11, before I really started to see a significant spike in the people downloading my shows. And I got my first client. And I think I learned most of what I learned because of the people that I interviewed. Mm-hmm. So that's one of the reasons I love interviewing people. Here's my take on it. I get to sit down with some of the world's leading experts in any given area, and I get to pick their brain for free, whereas I would have to pay them huge amounts of money, and I'm not averse to doing that. Obviously, I invest in my success, but what a great opportunity for me to broaden my education and learn about success in all these different areas. So Joe, what's been your biggest content marketing failure? And how did you come back from it? How did you recover from it and make it right?
Oh, well, this is a really easy one. The biggest failure happened, and I went through some of that backstory. But in 2007, I started a blog called the Content Revolution blog. And I started to educate people. And 3 times a week, I would do a blog post all about this idea that nobody knew what it was called, content marketing. A lot of people were doing it. Nobody called it content marketing. So I started a blog on a consistent basis, started building an audience of email subscribers. Things are starting to work well. But I was pushing this other product that I thought was the thing. And the mistake that I made was I didn't even listen to my audience. I fell in love with this product, which is so stupid now that I think about it. But I thought that, this eHarmony for content marketing is going to be the greatest thing ever. Who wouldn't sign up for this? By the way, I'm targeting agencies for money. And anybody that's worked with marketing agencies knows they have no money. They do not spend money on marketing. And yet that's who I was targeting to sign up for this ongoing service. And while this is failing, and I think that, oh my God, what did I do? And why did I leave this executive position? I had subscribers emailing me, hitting me up on Twitter and Facebook and asking me these questions that ended up being the products that I was going to launch. Joe, do you do any education training? Joe, do you do consulting? Do you do speaking? Joe, you're writing any books? Joe, we'd love to go to this event. And then finally, I had this come to Jesus moment. I won't go into big detail with it, but I lost the biggest client that we had for the service. And that's when I was thinking about quitting the whole thing. And then gave it a couple weeks and started to look through all the feedback from the readers and subscribers and finally realized it's almost like you were blind and now you see. It's exactly what I'm like. I can't believe it. Here they are. They're telling me what they want to buy, what they will spend money. And I'm ignoring it off here because I think I've got the greatest idea out here. So that was the biggest thing. And so it took me a while. I had the come to Jesus moment in September, October 2009. And then I wrote the new business model for Content Marketing Institute on a cocktail napkin. And then, did that business model. And then May of 2010, Content Marketing Institute launched and took off right away. And why did it take off right away? Because I just listened to the readers. They told me exactly what they were going to buy, what they wanted. It took off and that was it. But my failure was not listening. I was not listening to the readers and understanding that the business model, they will tell you the business model you should have. And that's why now, whenever I launch anything, and I launch things all the time now, new little projects, I have ideas for how revenue can happen, but I won't set in stone, this is how we're going to make money because I don't know yet. Because once I build an audience of 5,000, 10,000, 50,000, whatever, the opportunities will show in front of me and they will tell me exactly what I need to launch. And that's what happened with Content Marketing Institute.
So, Joe, as it relates to your book, the updated version, as opposed to the original version of the book, from a 30,000 foot view, tell us what's new and different about this updated version and how it can benefit the listener when they make the investment, not only to read the book, but actually deploy what's in it.
So so we talked about some of the beliefs and they're in there, right? The content tilt. How do I find my area of differentiation so I can break through all the clutter on the web? That's a very important part. I've expanded that part. But the biggest thing that I made changes are 2 major changes. The first change is there are people who build audiences cannot live for free. Like when you build a business, you need revenue. And in the first model, I pushed out revenue way too far, thinking, oh yeah, people can make it 12 to 18 months without. And then I'm like, that's silly. There's no, if any entrepreneurs, day one, you're trying to drive revenue. And the same happens in a Content Inc. business. So I had to say, look, let's get realistic here. So I took revenue, which was way down at the end, and I moved it up. So as soon as you build the base, which is I'm delivering consistent information in one channel over time and building my YouTube channel, or I'm building my e-newsletter, I'm building my podcast, you're immediately looking for that one revenue opportunity. So I break that out in the book. Like, what is that one revenue opportunity? Is it going to be sponsorship? Is it donations? Is it, I'm going to sell a product? Am I opening a store? Like, what am I doing to drive revenue? So that was really important, that big change. And then once you build that minimum viable audience and you have that one channel, then you can diversify. And there's 10, we go through this in the book, there's 10 different ways to drive revenue. So generally what we find in a Content Inc. business is you go from that one revenue opportunity, let's say it's sponsorship or you start an event, and then you build out generally 4, 5, 6, or 7 different revenue opportunities, like Disney, like Amazon, like the most innovative companies in the world. They don't just sell one thing, they sell many things. So that's the one thing, Ken. And the second thing is, and I'll just tell you a side story because I think it's important. I've done a lot of mentorship and I've done a lot of workshops for entrepreneurs, especially small businesses. So I've got landscapers, I've got HVAC technicians, I've got dentists we talked about before, whatever. And they're starting the small business and they're trying this whole Content Inc. thing, or they're just trying to survive and looking at content marketing. And my first question is always, all right, how many of you have a documented exit strategy? And most don't. Most have some idea, but it's not documented. Oh, I'm going to give it to my kids, or I'd like to sell someday for $10 million or whatever, but it's not documented. They don't have a vision of how to get there. There's no process. So I talk about that a lot in the book, that from day one, you really need to set for, okay, what are you trying to get out of this? And that was kind of the thing where, when I started the business in 2007, the one thing I did do right was I said right off the bat, my goal is to sell in 2015. So this is 2007. So this is how arrogant I was, Ken. I said, by 2015, we will sell the business. We, as in my wife and I, will sell the business for $15 million. So that was my goal. All I had was this eHarmony thing. And I said, this is what's going to happen. So send out the big, hairy, audacious goal. And I think that now you can change that, of course, if you need to, but you need to have that. So our exit strategy was always to sell. So whatever that is, that needs to be part of the whole Content Inc. plan going forward. And then I talk about how you build your asset, your audience, so that you can sell it someday for a lot of money, or you can continue to grow and live your life in however you want to. You want to spend X amount of money. What do you want it as a lifestyle business? Whatever you want to do. So basically, there's a huge couple chapters of setting your exit strategy, building up your revenue, and then how do you sell off parts of it, or how do you keep it and run and go big? So the last step of the new Content Inc. model is sell or go big. Now I decided to sell. I know a lot of people like, our Mr. Beast and some other ones that say, hey, we want to go big. We don't want to sell. You got Joe Rogan out there who he didn't want to sell his podcast, so he did a licensing agreement to Spotify for $100 million. Not bad, right? I don't know if that was his goal, but he did a pretty good job of it. So those are the types of things we talk about on how you can value content and audiences so that you can sell in whatever industry you're at. So if you have an audience of people that go to the dentist's office or homeowners versus somebody that buys $1 million equipment in a large business, those audiences are valued differently. You can sell those assets off differently. We talk a lot about that. So I'm a big believer, Ken, in exit strategy. And whenever you start this content marketing thing, I want you to think right away, keeping the end in mind. What is that end? What is that goal? I want to start that from the beginning. We can always change as we go, but we have to have our mindset on that. Or how do you know? How do you know you're going to be successful if you don't know what success is to you?
Especially in light of today. I mean, we're in the new COVID economy, and so nobody really knows when this is going to change or end. Everybody's got their opinions. But having said that, what do you say to the person who's like, I'm struggling to get by because I know there is a good percentage, maybe 10, 15% of the people that I've worked with that are really, really struggling. What do you say to them as far as, hey, you got to produce the content, you got to do this, you got to do that? How would you encourage them to start content marketing? Obviously, invest in Joe's book. You can pre-order that and I'll give the URL, or actually you're going to give me the URL at the end of the show. I didn't see it on Amazon. Maybe it's there, but I know you have a webpage. There,
yeah, because it's the new version. It's the second version. So I'll send them all the website. So first of all, this is not if you're looking for an easy business model, I mean, you're not mining. You're not doing hard labor here, but it is not easy. Ken, as you know, you've been podcasting a long time. It is not easy that you've delivered, except that 1 week, you've delivered for what, 5 years?
No, 4 years. I've only missed 1 week, and that's when I had COVID.
Oh my gosh.
I actually got COVID, and I was doing shows. Thankfully, I had some in the bank, so to speak. I have a reservoir of shows that I've recorded. But yeah, I actually continued with an interview, and I was going to try to do an interview with my friend Cloris Kiley. I had a couple of Vicodin, I think, from one of my recent surgeries that I had. They were long expired. I got hit by a dump truck, just real quick. I don't know if you know it or not. Head-on collision, nearly died, should have died. In a coma for 9 days, 18 surgeries.
Oh my God.
I had like 3 or 4 Vicodin. So what I thought I would do is I'll take 2 of these. I'll feel a little bit better. So I'm trying. She's like, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Cloris, I have COVID." And she goes, No, we have to reschedule. I can't do this to you right now. I said, "I really want to do this." She goes, "No, Ken, let's not do it." And I'm glad she did, because I felt like I was dying. I wasn't, that bad, but guys are pretty wimpy when they get sick. But anyway, yeah, 1 show, 1 week I've missed, but it is difficult to produce content. So what do you say to the person who's got a legitimate business who wants to start content marketing? I want you to encourage them is really what I'm looking for.
So here's the encouragement that I can give right off the bat. And my friend, I do colleague, Robert Rose, I do a podcast with him every week called This Old Marketing. And he has always said, I've listened to a million workshops Robert's put on. And he always says, our goal is to create the minimum amount of content with the maximum amount of results. What we're saying by that is less content done well trumps everything else. You don't have to have, and that's where we talked about in the beginning. Everyone feels they have to be everywhere. They have to put content all over No, you don't. You really need to build something amazing on a consistent basis. So figure that out. So if I'm talking to somebody that wants to get into this, and let's just say they want to create an e-newsletter, I will say, well, what's the best frequency that you can choose that e-newsletter is going to be amazing and remarkable and truly make an impact on your audience? What is that? What can you do with the time that you have? And you got a lot of other things going on. And that person might say, I can do every other week. It can be great. That's what we start with. Now, hopefully someday you could say, okay, now I can work up to that same level of quality and do weekly. Fine. But right now we're going to start every other week. By the way, I have an e-newsletter. It's every other week because I know with the time I have, that's the best I can do. And it's worked out fairly well. But that's what I would tell people to start with. What is that minimum that you can do with the maximum amount of results? So for anybody, so it's whatever it's going to be. Once you find that content tilt, once you find that area of differentiation, and once you figure out what's your show. I mean, this is a show, right? It's just like Jimmy Fallon's show, Jimmy Kimmel's show, Ellen's show. It's just that kind of thing. There's production that goes in. There's thought that goes into it. Yours just happens to be a podcast or an e-newsletter or a YouTube special or a Facebook group or whatever. We all have programming. And then figure out what that is that you need to do. And the surprising thing is, if you look at a lot of examples that we talk about in the Content Inc. book, a lot of them are every other week. A lot of them are weekly. It's not always daily. It really depends on what you're doing. Now, if you're going to make your hay on TikTok, you're probably doing at least a 20-second video every day.
Several.
Yeah, several. But at minimum, you're doing one video on TikTok. If you're on Instagram, you're probably a daily image. Like my good friend that used to work at Content Marketing Institute, Wally Koval, created an Instagram feed called Accidentally Wes Anderson. So every day he put up a picture that looked like it came out of a Wes Anderson movie, and he put all kinds of detail behind it. And in 4 years, he has 1 million followers on that thing and now has the best-selling book on the New York Times. It's amazing, called Accidentally Wes Anderson. How did he do that? He did by just every day putting out one picture. That's it. Now, not saying that wasn't a lot of work, but he spent an hour or so a day on putting that together. At the same time, he's working his job. And what do you know? In a couple of years later, he's able to quit his job. He's got a best-selling book, a huge advance from the publisher. And now he's going to do another one. And he's going to start all these travel guides and whatever. By the way, great book, Accidentally Wes Anderson, especially if you like a coffee table book. It's fantastic. But that's what I would say. What is your minimum that you can excel at? So I'm trying to take a little bit of the pressure off. And that's why I love this model, because when I talk to other so-called experts, and everybody's an expert in their own way, but they'll say, oh my God, we got to create all this content and shove it out there and I'm like, no, you don't. You'll never be an expert. You have to refine your practice area and become an expert in the podcast like you are in the e-newsletter and I still learn things about distributing an e-newsletter, and I've been doing it for 5 years. So those are the things that I want to focus on. Find your minimum and get started with that. And hopefully you'll go 3, 6, 9 months and you'll say, okay, that is the consistency. That is the cadence we want. And maybe you'll adjust it a little bit and you'll find it. And then by 12 months, you'll know that you're a weekly, you're an every other day, you're a monthly, whatever that show is, that you build that notoriety. You'll have those first 1,000 fans, as Kevin Kelly talks about, and then you'll really start to make some hay and create some revenue from it.
So, Joe, the one thing I want to stress is, and you've said this already multiple times, is once you decide what your frequency is, stick with it and be consistent. Make the decision before you start that you're going to see this through, however long that time frame is. You've got to stick with it and see it through. So, Joe, in the new book, in the updated version of the book, you talk about 6 core business building principles. Obviously, we can't dive into those, but if you could just touch on a couple of them and kind of whet the appetite of the person listening right now.
I think a couple things you start with, just because we've talked about a few things. One is when you look at your content tilt, you build what we call a content mission statement, just like an editorial mission statement for any other media company out there. I'm sure that everyone listening to this who has built a business, you started with some kind of a business mission. Well, this is your content mission. This is your business mission for your audience. Sometimes it's the same. Sometimes it's not. So I want you to spend some time on doing that. So it's basically, who am I targeting? Who's that audience? What am I going to deliver? Is this short, punchy, informational facts that I put in a newsletter? Is it in-depth interviews that I'll send via audio and podcast? Is it, funny videos that go out on Facebook, whatever it is? And then the third part of your content mission is really critical, is what's the outcome for the audience? I can't tell you how big this is and how many people miss this, because most of the time when people create a mission statement, they say, this is how we get money. We're so awesome in this. Like, look at any regular business, like go to a Fortune 500 company and go to their mission statement. Most of them are terrible. We're the leading innovative XYZ in this industry, and you should love us because we sell this, that, and the other. It's horrible. The content mission statement is great because it's only focused on the audience's needs. So that's the last part of a content mission statement, is what is that need of the audience? What's the audience outcome? Are you helping them live a better life, get a better job, and whatever they're doing? And we list that. And what happens is you take that then to the content you create. So every time I write an e-newsletter, I have an audience outcome, and I'm like, okay, what do I want the audience to get out of this? On this one, I want them to invest smarter so that they can do the things they want to do in their lives, spend more time with family. In this one, I want them to get an exit strategy together so that they can do the things that they want to do. So I really think about those things, because I don't want to be focused on, okay, I'm going to sell this e-newsletter so that I can sell more stuff. Well, once you've done that, you've already lost the program. That will happen. That will happen. But first, what has to happen is this focus on the audience. So that's the one thing. The second business thing that I really want to talk about, and we go into a lot in the book, but there are unequal subscribers out there. And I have this whole thing in the book called the subscriber hierarchy. And what that means is you move from rented to owned land. And what do I mean by that? Well, rented land is if you set up a YouTube channel, you're renting land. That's YouTube's land. It's YouTube subscribers. If you build any subscribers, they're not yours. They're YouTube's, and you're borrowing them for a while. Now, it's good and bad. The good news is that's where your audience might be. So great. You don't have to go find them and pay for social ads. You don't have to find them on search. You don't have to, desperately cold email people. Like, they're already on YouTube, and hopefully you'll figure out the algorithm and you'll get people to come to your site. Fine. But YouTube can change that algorithm at any moment. And you might have 100,000, like Mr. Beast has 49 million subscribers as of today. And he could have 0 tomorrow, because YouTube might say, you're out. or we changed or we changed our algorithm. I mean, if you look at Twitter, go type in onto Google the amount of people or the number of people Twitter has banned over the last year. It's amazing. They ban people for all kinds of reasons all over the place. Well, how do you know that's not going to be you? You don't know. So these are the things where I like starting on rented channels because your audience might be there, but you have to move it up the chain. That's what we call a subscriber hierarchy. So at the bottom, you've got Facebook, you've got YouTube, you've got Instagram, you've got TikTok, and you've got to move that up the chain to go to, ultimately, my take would be email newsletters, an email or a membership group, somewhere where you get an email, you get a cell phone address, you get something identifying as your primary key that you can build around, that somebody opts in and says, yes, you can have my personal information. I trust you to do well with this. And in exchange for that, you're going to deliver them amazing content. So that's why we're going up the chain. Now, if you just said, I'm going to start an email newsletter and you want to start right at your own channel, it's just going to take you longer. There's nothing wrong with it. It's going to take you longer. Like I started with a blog. Blog was great. That's my own website. It's my own content. I own the whole thing, but it took a good 2 to 3 years to really get in the right searches, to really focus on the right, finding the right email subscribers to make it work. It would have taken a lot less time if I found that on a rented channel. So you have to pick your poison. If you've got more time, go right to the own channel. If you want to start to build an audience as quickly as possible, you would want a rented channel and then move it up the chain.
So Joe, just 2 more questions before we talk about how we can pre-order the book actually, but what would you say, and this question is actually a combination of 2, but what area of content marketing is really getting ready to explode? And then juxtapose that with what area of content marketing is on the verge of dying out?
Oh, Gus, fantastic question. The first one is easy, and it's the reason why I wrote a new version of Content Inc. I have 2 teenage boys, 17 and 19. They all create their own content in their own way on Discord and YouTube and Twitch and got all kinds of channels, and all their friends do as well. And what's amazing is they're actually pretty good at building audiences, and they're pretty terrible at figuring out how to drive revenue from those audiences. And what I've been seeing with, if you want to call it Gen Z, not even millennials, it's really Gen Z. Although, I'm Gen Xer and there's a lot of Gen Xers that don't know how to do this either, is once you build an audience, how do you monetize it? How do you actually build a business from the audience? And I've realized in talking to these kids, and I can say kids because they're my kids' age, they don't know how to do it. They don't know that outside YouTube advertising, you could generate 9 different things from that, from affiliate marketing to donations to direct products and services and all kinds of stuff. They just don't know how to do it, and that there's a method to doing that.
And you cover that in the book.
Cover that in the book. Yeah, I cover build. And that's the whole thing about Content Inc. is the business model of once first of all, we'll teach you in the book, how do you build the audience? How do you find your sweet spot? How do you find your content tilt, your differentiation? But it's a business model. And you say, okay, well, ultimately, how do I drive revenue? How are some audience members more valuable than others? What revenues, when should I get into some revenues and versus others? So we talk about that business model. That's really, really important. The second thing so the other question was, what are things that are going to go away?
Yeah.
I don't know when or if this is going to happen, but Ken, this is a prediction that I've had for a long time. And this is why Robert Rose and I wrote Killing Marketing in 2017, because the whole premise behind that is that the marketing model inside most companies and the media model that we see from the New York Times or Huffington Post or anything, they're actually identical. They're becoming identical. It's the same model around building audiences and monetizing audiences. The difference is that the New York Times monetizes their audiences through advertising or paid subscriptions. And Red Bull monetizes their audiences by selling more Red Bull. But what are they doing? They're doing the same thing. They're building loyal audiences over time, delivering fantastic content experiences and then monetizing them. People just put it in their own buckets of this is a media company and this isn't a media company. But what's Disney? Not a media company. They do everything, right? What's Amazon? Amazon is a media company and not a media company. Because they generate all sorts of revenues. So that's where I'm trying to get people to say that the old marketing model is going away. And it's being replaced by this thing of we're in any company, we're going to have audience groupings that we're going to deliver information to them ongoing. And we're going to have 5, 6, 7 different ways that we monetize that. And I think that's just and by the way, it doesn't have to be that way, Ken, but I think the most innovative companies in the world will do this. And then the only thing that I'll end with that. So that's the thing that I think is going away. The old marketing model of basically disruption. Advertising will always be around, but that's the major spending point that's going away. The thing that's taking over the industry right now, if you're not, maybe people like us are probably paying attention. Maybe the people listening aren't. We're seeing a lot of companies say, hey, this content marketing thing, this is really hard to do. Well, are there anybody out there that's done it well already? And can we buy it instead of building it? So that's what we're seeing right now, especially with a lot of these. And I'm seeing a lot of these real small deals, even some 5-figure, 6-figure deals where you've got kids in a lot of cases that built these audiences, and you got companies coming in and saying, hey, can we buy your brand from you? And they're like, oh yeah, for $100,000. Great. Well, $100,000 to these big companies are nothing because it would take them millions to build an audience like that. So what we're going to see in the next 5 years, Ken, is just a lot of merger acquisition talk around this model, but not necessarily traditionally. We've just seen media companies buying other media companies. Now you're seeing companies like, Amazon just bought another podcast company the other day. Spotify's buying you've got these big companies that are buying all these media companies, what we think are media companies, media brands. And it's just a free for all right now. It's almost like the gold rush or we're running out of real estate almost. It's like digital real estate and people are out there buying it up. And you're going to see that happen the next couple of years. Yeah,
they're buying it for pennies on the dollar as well. They're getting it, like you said, dirt cheap.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. They're saying, okay, well, who's out there? Oh, that person's got a podcast. That person has 20,000 regular downloads. Well, what if I gave that person $50,000 and people are actually selling it? Would you stay on? I'll give you $50,000. I'll pay you ongoing. Would you do it? Like, oh yeah. This is happening like crazy. And, I don't know if you have it, Ken, but I've got my little hit list of, here's the things if they ever become available. I'm going to send a note to this person and see if there's an opportunity there. I mean, these are things that all entrepreneurs should be doing right now.
All right, last question before we talk about how to pre-order your book. What's the one question today, Joe, that I didn't ask that I should have asked?
We talked about it a little bit, but I think it's too important. Not everyone should do this. If you don't have the time, if you're not going to make the time and make the decision and commit to this, please don't try it. Like I've been in $1 million or $1 billion brand companies, and they talk about this, less than 6 months or 9 months or a year or whatever, and they want this fast start, almost like a campaign. They treat it like a campaign. And I tell them, please just stop it. The world doesn't need any more of your horrible content clutter out there. We already have enough of it. So if you're not going to commit to it with your heart and soul, please don't do it. So, I don't know if that's a question or that answers what you're saying, but if I had to leave people with something is you do have a choice. You could just choose the old business model that we've been using for hundreds of years. Nothing wrong with that. Do I think you're going to grow and be innovative and do amazing things? Probably not. But you can serve some people with something that's very valuable. Nothing wrong with that. But if you want to shake the world and change the world, boy, I really love this model, because once you build a loyal audience, you can literally sell anything you want to that group of people. And it's an amazing opportunity you have to really change the world and change the lives of people in a positive way.
So, Joe, how do we pre-order your book? I know it's not available on Amazon for pre-order yet, but it is on your website. What's the URL?
JoePulizzi.com, JoePulizzi.com. It's as soon as you go up to the top, you'll see the banner for the book. You can't miss it. Or I've got all my other books in there, but that would be the best way to do it. And I think you can, maybe in the next couple of weeks, you'll be able to pre-order on Amazon, but I'm starting to get the audiobook going now. And so in the next couple of months, we'll get everything rolling. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about it.
Anything else as far as URLs or pages on your website you think they should visit? Because I think you got an awesome website.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, actually, you and I talked about this before. We're all dealing with the COVID Corona marketing thing. I created a free book called Corona Marketing. If you go to the joepulizzi.com, just click on books. Corona Marketing is right there. Click on it. It's absolutely free. Sign up. You get my newsletter with it. It's about, what is it? You just read it. It's like 15 pages or something like that. It's not a lot.
Well, it's actually it's a little bit more than that, but I got to tell you, it's really good. I was surprised because a lot of times people give away free stuff and it's not all that good. And this, I think, is consistent with how you approach content marketing. You gave away your best stuff. I mean, this is stuff you could actually and should have charged money for, but you know your business model better than I do. This is really high quality stuff that you would normally have to pay for to get access. And you gave it away free. So that's why I wanted to have you mention that. So where's the page? Is that just go to the homepage again?
Thank you. Yeah. joepulizzi.com and click on books is the way. Actually, you can go to coronamarketingbook.com. That'll take you right there. So wherever you want to do it, if you put Corona Marketing Book into Google, you will go to it as well. So you can get it that way. But yeah, thank you for the kind words. It's funny. I'll end with this part. I was going to become a novelist. I wrote my fiction book, Ken, and I'm like, this is it. I moved from content marketing guy. I'm going to be a novelist. And then this COVID-19 hit and I started to get emails and notes from entrepreneurs who are struggling, who are trying to figure out this Content Inc. model, which has had some kind of resurgence because you don't need a lot of money. You need a lot of time and energy to do it, not necessarily a lot of financial dollars. So a lot of people are doing it. And I'm like, well, at least for right now, I'm going to put the second version of my fiction on the shelf. And I'm going to say, well, if we can help some people out this way, we're going to try it.
Definitely worth the investment of your time and money. So Joe, thanks for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ken. Keep doing what you're doing, man.
You know, as you heard during my conversation today with Joe Pulizzi, the surest way to content marketing failure is to follow old, outdated rules. You heard Pulizzi reveal a new model for entrepreneurial success, a model about developing valuable content, building an audience around that content, and then creating a product for that particular audience. Having a content creation, distribution, and marketing system in place that allows you to build a tribe of raving fans is mandatory if you want to get clients now, make more sales, and grow your business, especially as we find ourselves stuck in the heart of the new COVID economy. You know, over the last 4 years, we've had several conversations about how you can use content marketing and other strategies to build a tribe of raving fans, people who are absolutely in love with you, to get clients now, increase sales, and grow your business. A great episode that comes to mind is episode 389, where best-selling author Melanie Diesel revealed right and wrong content marketing creation methods and the simple framework you can use to come up with hundreds of new content marketing ideas you can use to get clients now and increase profits in 2021. Episode 389 is a wonderful place for you to go next. Having said that, if you'd like to discover an additional effective strategy you can use to get clients now and build a massive tribe of raving fans, Episode 363 with my friend David Meerman Scott, author of the latest bestseller he put out, Fanocracy, reveals the secret for creating a massive tribe of raving fan customers, the blueprint for creating a profitable business, and the freedom to live the ultimate lifestyle. Episode 363 is a great place for that. And then finally, if you'd like to learn how to build a tribe of raving fans quickly and easily, I'd recommend episode number 365, A Service Provider's Guide for How to Do Influencer Marketing the Right Way, with my friend Cloris Kiley, author of Beyond Influencer Marketing. Kiley is also the host of the top-ranked podcast, Beyond Influencer Marketing, and during our conversation on episode 365, she revealed her most effective and powerful strategies for building a tribe of raving fans, so again, you can get clients now and make more sales. Episode 365 with Cloris Kiley for that. You can find all those episodes on the KenNewhouse.com website. When you become a member on KenNewhouse.com, you'll have instant access to my own personal library, the book notes from the updated version of Joe Pulizzi's book, Content Inc., and the highlights I've captured not only from my conversation with Joe, but from his book as well. You'll also have access to the other books that I featured on the show for the last few years, plus access to a weekly strategy guide that'll come into your inbox every Wednesday. The guide will feature all the links we mentioned on every show that links to books, resources, also other podcast episodes, as well as the most effective strategy we covered on that week's episode. Additionally, the guide will contain other articles online that I think will be useful for you. So today's the day where I announce the launch date for the new membership portal we're creating for you on KenNewhouse.com, and that's going to be March 1st. So remember, In addition to all that I've mentioned, the first 100 subscribers who sign up and register for the free membership on kennewhouse.com on March 1st, 2021 are going to get access to a free digital copy of the updated version of my book, Profitable Again, as well as a copy of my newest book, Profitable Podcast Blueprint. If you've ever thought about starting a podcast for your business and you're unsure about how to monetize it, the Profitable Podcast Blueprint is literally a blueprint that shows you how to use a podcast to bring high-value clients into your core business and do it consistently. And speaking of incredible content like I've got on kennewhouse.com, next week I'm having a conversation with Matt Barnett, CEO of Bonjoro, who's going to reveal how to boost customer engagement with perfectly timed personal videos. So join me for a conversation next week with my guest Matt Barnett, where we're going to discuss how to use short personal videos to increase engagement, get more clients, and drive sales so you can make your business more profitable in 2021. Have a great week, and I'll see you on the show.
Our objective with this podcast is to help you and your business stand out in the marketplace by crystallizing your messaging, marketing, and communications. On behalf of the whole Ken Newhouse team, thanks for listening.